I stopped being an electrician. I'm in the process of trying to actually build a business. I've never run a business. I've never run a consulting agency. I've never sold books before. I'm not just acting as an author. I'm acting as a publisher. I'm acting as a consultant, which not yet, but soon. I'm acting as a podcast host. You got off your ass and you started doing.
Absolutely.
We can talk about doing all day long, but if we're not actually doing anything, then we're treading water and the current's pulling us down. I know it's hard. I know it sucks. I know it feels like it's pointless. But show up anyway. Do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is, do it anyway.
They said it was too late, that the best years were behind him. But he wasn't done. He was just getting dangerous. This podcast isn't for the overnight success stories. It's for the ones who are still in the middle of the damn fight. The late bloomers, the blue-collar visionaries, the people who refuse to settle. This isn't a comeback. It's a fucking uprising.
And welcome back to Electrician Entrepreneur Podcast, documenting my journey from 20-year veteran status as an electrician, construction, now in manufacturing maintenance, and making that journey to entrepreneur, successful business owner. Well, really, that's consultant is what we're aiming at. And hopefully someday, motivational speaker and venture capital. Although, as a side note to the beginning of this show, venture capital is changing and is promising to not look like it used to in the next 20 years. So, at any rate, so this journey started out as just me documenting this journey, and then over the course of the last couple of months, I've been joined by my beautiful wife, Julie, who is also joining. She's becoming her own entrepreneur of sorts, and opening up her own business. So, welcome to the journey.
Hi.
So at any rate, this week, so I just want to apologize for the one regular listener that we have that we missed last week. And I just we're going to catch up with the last 2 weeks. Instead of just doing 1 week recap, we'll recap both of the previous 2 weeks with this episode. But, just to kind of quickly, we'll touch a little bit on what happened and everything, but essentially it comes down to, it's not easy at the age of 51 to, spend probably 90% of your waking hours thinking about what your next step is in creating a business, and then also working in a 9 to 5, so to speak, second shift, no less. So, and I'm not trying to make any excuses. It is what it is, but I was pretty run down last week. And, so it just didn't materialize. One of the hardest things, before we get too much into this, one of the hardest things to, I can't see this very well. I wish there was a way I could zoom. No way to zoom. But one of the toughest things about trying to do two different things live a double life, so to speak, is when the weekend comes along and you've got, personal things you need to take care of. And that's essentially what last week was, because Saturday we had to help out with Julie's family, with moving some stuff, and typically Saturday is, that's when everything from the previous week is caught up to me, and I spend most of the day in bed. Mm-hmm. And kind of what happened today, I don't remember why we what happened. I think I was just too run down Saturday. Really,
You didn't feel good.
it's right. I was sick.
Yeah.
It was something was bothering me after we moved.
Yep.
And then no, Sunday's the day that I didn't feel good. Saturday I was tired from the move.
Yeah.
So, and then Sunday I didn't feel good, so we didn't bother recording. So at any rate, so that's what happened. It is what it is. So I suppose I ought to just put this right in front of me. I'm getting to that age. I'm going to have to start wearing cheaters all the time. Yeah.
I do.
I don't like it. I don't want to. So we're just quick catch up on what, before we get really in depth in what's in this episode. I did launch my book. I kind of hit a point where it was like, all right, because I'm asking a lot of the general public who doesn't know who I am and doesn't know anything about me. They don't know that I've really worked for 20 years as an electrician. Regardless of what my resume says, especially this day and age where, people use AI to kind of cheat at a lot of things. I kept, my big thing is, and I think, everybody goes through this in the process of becoming or doing something completely different, especially when you're putting yourself out there for the rest of the world to see. And it's like, with so many people, and I don't know, I'm a skeptic. And that skepticism, that cynicism, comes from years and years and years of people not being what they say they are, and so on and so forth. So it's easy for me to make the excuse that, who's going to believe me? Who's going to really buy into what I'm doing? And so creating this pre-order sales pitch for publishing the book, also for the community and all this other stuff, it's kind of like, well, I should do more. I need to do more to kind of solidify myself in this arena as somebody that is trustworthy, somebody that you should, in fact, listen to, when it comes to how to make your business function better and so on and so forth. And so I reached a frustration moment and it made this big decision. In really kind of the frustration just pushed me to a point where it's like, well, the only thing that's keeping this book from being on sale is publishing. The only thing. Publishing, ISBNs, copyright, and actually that's pretty much it. And the funding that I need to do those things. And I'm asking for people to pre-order so that I can fund those things. But again, I've got this I've got this cynicism. If I were them, why would I believe me? Why would I pay for this thing? How do I know I'm going to actually get it? Mm-hmm. Who the hell cares about his signature? Right. Nobody else believes in the book like I do. And of course, nobody's going to. Excuse me. But so it just came down to it. And I did a bunch of work on the landing page, and, with Stripe who's the company I'm using for payments and handling all of the legal side of the money, went ahead and put the book for sale as a digital book. So it's PDF, it's on sale. And I did all this. It's funny, but within the notes, it says that I did all of this against the backdrop of muscle relaxers, neck pain, and a W-2 job that feels like a battlefield. And it is very, so we'll get into all of that as we go along. But just, shameless plug, evec-community.org is where you'll find this book. If you're probably not going to be interested in it if you're not in the electrical contracting, or if you're not in the electrical business at all. I suggest, regardless of if you're an electrician, regardless of where you are in the field, it's worth a read. I think that it pertains to everyone. The real subject matter of the book, of course, is about the organization in which we do business, and it can be used. If you're a plumber, it would make sense. If you're, an HVAC contractor, it'll make sense. If you're a carpenter, it'll make sense. I think that it really it applies to business in general, especially in the contracting world. And so, shameless plug. Check it out, evec-org or -community.org. That's evec-community.org. And so that being said, and then Julie, you have homework that you had to worry about. And so, so we're going to get into that a little bit, common capital. So if you're somebody who's looking to start a business similar, a service business, service-oriented business like what you're doing,
right,
or even retail, common capital handles a lot of things. So, they're a lender for small business. And so, so you're going to talk a little bit about that, the hurdles that you're going through for them, and how helpful they've been.
Yes.
Because they are, it's seemingly from an outside looking in. I don't know. I'm not dealing with the person you're dealing with, but, seemingly they care. They really, really care about helping you become, and just as a note, that's kind of what I would like to be able to do. Is to be able to help people make this transition into this, that's kind of where I was aiming to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that, in her, she's a counselor of sorts. Yeah. Right. So, and so the core question, that the two of us are going to answer is, what do you do when your dream is finally starting to breathe, but your bank account and your body are still gasping for air? So we'll get into that. Let's see, explaining today's, built from the raw journal. Well, so this is a big point, and we'll do this, and I'm not going to plug anybody, but I will say, I will give them a quick freebie. And the only reason I don't want to is because I did reach out to them and they refused to even talk to me, which is funny because if I give them customer service related question, they're all over it. But, if I want to talk business, then they don't want to even bother with me. So that's fine. But MindSarah, we use MindSarah. Both of us, do. We pay for the basic plan, right? There's a basic plan. Excuse me. So we both pay for the basic plan. And it's been instrumental in helping us kind of really wrap our mind around, because one big thing, and this is a recurring theme within our show, is really, becoming this entrepreneur is not just, it's a complete change of lifestyle. It's a complete change of identity, realistically.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, so we're, so at any rate, so this, what we use, and I know I mentioned this before, but we use basically a summary, and then MindSarah helps us generate this. And then, of course, I feed it into Gemini. It's funny, I don't have a problem plugging fucking a big conglomerate like Google, but I'm like, I don't want to plug MindSarah. That's kind of stupid. At any rate, so I use AI. I use this particular AI. So the combination of the two, we came up with our notes, and so this is based on real stuff that we went through.
Yeah.
And hopefully this time around, our notes are really going to be, a little more on par. So I'm not just like, so I don't know what this is supposed to mean. And I tried to change the format of the notes this week in a way that will be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So the things that we're going to kind of get into is we're going to talk about the pivot from being fired to doing the work, financial nakedness, facing the numbers, and the $47 win, the art of letting go, finger traps, and which you don't even understand what I mean by that, do you?
No.
So the finger traps and the and rehoming Jack, and the ego versus service, navigating workplace paranoia, and the spiral, and the Sabbath system, which is why stillness is actually growth. So, before we jump into our first segment on, and really start getting into the heat of this all, I feel, you and I have been talking about this each morning, the last few days. I don't know how much I've really kind of relayed to you, but I've kind of been making a big transition into more of the philosopher. And I've been really kind of embracing, Taoism a lot more. So, and I've talked about this before, that I don't really kind of stick to a religion. Taoism isn't a religion, by the way. The Tao Te Ching it's a poetic philosophy more than anything. And in my opinion, some might, of course, there's a reason why we call it Taoism. Some would call it a religion. You could base some kind of religion around it, but I think that Taoism, it doesn't really kind of call to a specific deity or anything like that. So in that regard, it's more of a philosophy than a religion. And then, and as far as, any kind of deity, I've talked about that before. I don't really, I think I pull a little bit from everywhere, and, and I have my own particular feel for what that means. We watched a great interview today.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really good interview.
That was very interesting.
And so he's a Christian historian, and his, I tell you what, there's a man who's really faithful.
Yeah.
There was, because he approached every question without having his faith shook in one bit, and still answered it in a way that wasn't, he didn't get defensive. He was very philosophical about all of his answers, which I think, and I think that there needs to be more of that, that discussion, when it comes down to faith, is, it's not so much that when somebody questions, your religion or whatever it is, I think it's, I think that we should embody his approach, which is to say, I'm not being attacked, but rather, here's some interesting things to think about. And, and so, okay, well, here's where I land on this, and let's examine that question and in the root of that question, and then we can probably find it easier to get to the heart of the matter, and how I land on this. So that's I really enjoyed that. But so that being said, forced pivot from philosophy to the arena. So last week, not this past week, but the week before, excuse me, I kind of hit, again, this is frustrations. I spent probably a good portion of the last 2 weeks pretty damn frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
pretty sure I started this week with a lot of frustration too, didn't I?
Yeah.
And so, I was kind of, go away. So last Sunday, after we did our morning rituals, we start the journal. And I think that frustration of, of the previous, the previous week where I'm landing, I feel like there's just something not adding up with what I'm trying to do. And so I kind of hit this frustration level on it. And I just started, excuse me, your nose hair that's freaking blowing all over the place. Or maybe it's mustache hair that's curled up. I don't know. But at any rate, so I hit this, and I says, so I wrote, it's time to start doing and stop talking about doing. Trying to get better is just perfecting a philosophy where there are no results. And and I also, even even Gemini in my discussions about what more I can, because I keep wanting to improve the backside of things instead of instead of actually reaching out to people, instead of trying to join groups, reach out to mentors, et cetera, et cetera. Here I am looking at, how can I improve improve the actual business, not the customer, or not actually going out for the customers, but the way the business looks, et cetera. And Gemini even called me out and said that, I'm constantly talking about creating systems within my own book.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am, I'm lacking in them. And so this was really kind of where I was. And it's probably one of my biggest frustrations right now is I don't have any systems for this business. And so just, for those listening, what I mean by systems, what do we mean by systems?
How do I explain this? A group of activities or mindsets that set you up to accomplish tasks, or set up a schedule.
I think you're trying to overcomplicate it.
I don't know.
So, no, you do know. A system is an SOP, standard operating procedure. So, the idea behind creating systems is, what do you do when this happens? So one way to look at it is like, okay, so when you're running a business, whatever business you're in, right? When you create a business, you have a whole bunch of different aspects. Now, people typically think of let's think of, say, a lawyer. So now a lawyer is going to open up an office. He's going to go into practice for himself. What's one of the first things he needs? He needs a secretary who's going to take all the phone calls, handle the office administration. Maybe he needs a paralegal who's going to do all of his filing and I don't know, do all that other stuff that, is really time consuming stuff. And so that he could focus more on, what he can and can't do for his clients and,
right.
and researching and such. Paralegal handle a lot of research, so on and so forth. Right. So, in addition to that, he also needs somebody to handle the money. I mean, okay, I spent 4 hours this week, pouring through, all these legal briefs, and so now we've got to bill for that 4 hours. So somebody's sitting there, okay, so we're going to bill out this much money, and it's going to be this, that, and the other. And then, of course, so this much is going to go towards taxes, and this much is going to go, and then we got to file this, this much money has to be filed to the state for this and that and the other. Whatever memberships that they belong to, that's got to get paid. They handle all the money,
Right.
the bookkeeping. And then of course, they might, from time to time worry about marketing themselves better, getting themselves on a billboard. Maybe they're, a form of ambulance chaser. So they're on billboards everywhere, you've been hurt,
Right.
whatever it is. And, so any business, you have all these different aspects to it. And the thing is when you set up a business, any business whatsoever, you need a system for each aspect of it, for every one of those aspects. And the system then breaks down into the various different SOPs. So when this happens under this umbrella, within the system, when this happens, this is how we deal with it. Now, you know what I mean? Right. So that's what we mean by systems. And so when I talk about systems within my book, and now mind you, there's 298 pages of fucking systems.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think it got knocked down. I don't even think it's 298 anymore. But at any rate, but it's, there's a lot of systems involved in my book. And this is all about electrical contracting. So there's systems involved in how you handle general contractors, how you handle problems in the field, how you handle apprentices, how you handle different crews, how do you set up your crews. These are all different systems. And this can wait. And so, so here I am, I talk about all these systems in my book and, in doing that. But see, now this is where the disconnect is. I'm not trying to run an electrical contractor. I know how to, I know great ways in which electrical contractors using these systems that I've come up with can improve their business.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not in the business of contracting. I'm in the business of helping them
right.
with contracting. So I don't have systems. So, and Gemini called me out on this, and I wrote about it in my journal entry. And that's when I wrote, it's time to, and so I kind of had to say, I need to start figuring out, because that's really where my frustration is. Okay, I did all these things, now what? And I've got 20 things that I can do, but of those 20 things, what should I worry about the most? And so when it comes to marketing, in my entire marketing campaign right now is loosely based around LinkedIn. When it comes to my marketing, what's my schedule? How often do I post? What kind of articles am I writing? Where am I getting my material from for these things? How am I going to pull people through my posts back to my landing page so that they can pre-order and all this other stuff? And so this is a lot of frustration was around that. And it's like, well, realistically, my marketing campaign each day shouldn't take more than 20 to 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why should it be longer than that? And meanwhile, I'm trying to formulate this whole thing with the help of Gemini, in brainstorming these ideas. And it's creating an entire schedule. Like, that's all I'm going to do. And that's frustrating to me. It's like, well, but I still need to build the app. I still need to freaking figure out how, I still need to figure out the ins and outs of publishing. I still need to start creating the content that goes into the app. Mm-hmm. And I've got a list. It's a mile long of things that I'd really like to do before I actually launch. Right.
Right.
And I've got a deadline, or I've created sort of a deadline for launching by early summer. Well, I'm pushing that back.
Yeah.
Because I'm not, I still haven't locked in these systems. I still haven't figured out, how am I going to do all this? So that's where this, is like, what, it's time to stop talking about doing it and just start doing it. And that means, all right, so spend some time building, spend some time. But what I'm missing is I'm missing the systems. And so, you know what? Instead of talking about creating the systems, and fuck Gemini, fuck everything else, I'm going to just start writing this shit down and start doing it. And that's where all this came from. And, the stupid keyboard keeps coming up. So, why are we here? So, it's the week started there, and it just kind of progressed there, into, it's that level of frustration just kept growing, because I'm having a really hard time figuring out how to create these systems. And so I think that, I don't know. So that's, that's really, I don't know what else to say about it. Is there much more to say about it?
No, I think that's the crux.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of frustration there. And this is, I think this is a big part of anybody who decides that they're going to completely change their entire lives. And it's not just, so I'm going to stop being a cop and I'm going to start freaking selling hoagies at fucking, at the sandwich shop down the street. Well, that guy already figured out how to sell sandwiches. He's going to teach you how to do it. This is not that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I stopped being an electrician, or I haven't stopped yet, but I'm in the process of trying to stop doing that and actually build a business. I've never run a business. I could run an electrical business, but I've never run a consulting agency. I've never sold books before. I'm not just acting as an author. I'm acting as a publisher. I'm acting as a freaking a consultant, which not yet, but soon. I'm acting as a podcast host. Thankfully, we've got Liam, so I'm no longer being the producer and editor of the show anymore. But I'm wearing a lot of hats, and this is all stuff that's new to me that I've never done before. Right. So it's, and I think that anybody who makes this kind of transition, this is what you should expect. It's, this isn't just a matter of, okay, I want to be successful. Anybody can change their career and from one thing into another and go work for somebody. And actually it's suggested that if you wanted to do something along the lines of what I'm trying to do, that you find somebody to go work for. Here locally in Massachusetts, there are no consultants.
Yeah. Yeah. It's where are you going to find?
Not electrical consultants.
Right.
Certainly not in the, self-help arena either. And there are guys that I can, but you know what? Everybody wants a commitment from you, and that commitment comes in the form of greenbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, so for the average person, they think, well, that's them trying to bilk you out of all this money. No, that's them saying, if you really want to make this commitment, you have to make a massive sacrifice first. And yeah, it helps them also, of course, be able to afford to do the things that they're doing. Nothing's free.
Right.
So at any rate, so I think that's really, that's an important thing to kind of really, to really kind of pay attention to, is that, these frustrations, you can expect that these are the kind of frustrations that you're going to deal with.
Yeah.
If you're going to build a business, the camera's shaking. Try not to bang the table. If you're going to build a business, if you're going to try to become an entrepreneur of any type, whether it's a billionaire entrepreneur, or, and you're whatever, or you're going to become an entrepreneur in the service industry, dog groomer.
Right.
You have to develop systems.
Yeah.
And I think this is the thing that I've been really, it's something that I'm very much preaching about the electrical industry, but at the same time, I'm not coming through. I'm not providing that same thing for myself. I can provide that service for others, but for some reason, I'm avoiding doing it for myself. And that's creating a massive amount of frustration for me. So I think that this is, if you don't have systems, if you're not creating systems, you're going to find yourself very frustrated very often. And I think that, too, is, it's also a lot easier when you start to develop these systems to avoid the doubts, the voice, the devil in your ear, so to speak, right? If you have systems in place for building your business, and there's a lot of people out there, by the way, that are selling systems, even for what you're doing, systems that you can use to put everything in, all your ducks in a row, so that you can, what your next step is, what all right. So here's the next thing you should be concerned with, working on before your business opens its door for the first time. They're out there. So you can find your, you can use cookie cutter type systems, but I think I think ultimately at the end of the day, even if you were to go down that avenue, you have to make the systems your own.
Right.
And so, we're stubborn, you and me, we're very stubborn. We have to learn everything the hard way. So we're not going to borrow somebody else's systems. We're going to learn the hard way to create our own.
Yeah.
So, I guess this comes to you. I mean, so fired the catalyst, fired from the safety net.
So as I've mentioned previous episodes, I was fired from my job, after 9 years, there being a dog groomer. Not going to mention any names.
Yeah, I've been trying to avoid that too. Excuse me.
I was fired because I had a plan to move on from that particular business to working essentially for myself within someone else's business. So I would have been not necessarily an independent contractor. It would be my own business. And
you're just renting the space.
Basically, I'm renting a table like you would rent a chair at a salon.
Right.
And it didn't work out. So here I am, no job, and really nowhere to go. So I decided I would convert my breezeway into a dog grooming salon.
Right.
And so I've been working toward that. And the biggest thing I'm working on is getting funding, because the whole place got to be torn up and redone. Paint, floor, the whole shebang. Not to mention equipment. So that's been challenging.
I'm sorry if I'm distracting you. I forgot to put a timer on my screen.
It's been challenging. I've hit some roadblocks. Most recently, I've been working with Common Capital, as Liam mentioned, and it's a great organization. They basically help you get to a point where you have your business plan, your financials, all these things to present to a loan officer.
Well, before we get too much into that, I kind of want to try to stick to our our format here. So we're gonna get into that, right?
Okay.
But talk. So I know it's not easy. You are not me, So you're not like throw it all out there for the world to see. But I'm, in taking part in this show, I'm asking you to strip down. Not physically.
Nobody wants
strip
to see that.
strip the layers away and talk about what is it. So how does this happen? So what happens in your head? How do you come to your next decision? What transpires in between? So you get fired because you're looking at going to not work for somebody else, but work with somebody else,
yeah.
essentially. So you get fired, and that's an emotional,
yes.
And then how did you come to the conclusion that it wasn't going to work out with the renting of the table?
And the table rental was outrageously expensive. I mean, over $1,000
a month. Right.
That's my profit. I mean, there's just
right.
no way to.
Well, now you've had some time, and I don't mean to kind of steer. I'm curious. You've had some time now to kind of look deeper into how your financials work out compared to then. And I suppose, so at that point, this is what you're going on in your head. $1,000 is your profit. You're not going to, how can you possibly pay the bills?
Right.
But now that you've looked deeper into your financials, I mean, you're going to make a decent living, even if you were spending that $1,000 per month.
Yes. Once I have a full schedule.
Right. Initially
it would be very difficult.
It would bury you.
Yes. It was, I don't want to get into the whole story, but it would have been prohibitively expensive, and I wouldn't have been able to do it.
And so this is essentially your mindset.
Yes.
So now you start. So you're already really down because you lost your job.
Yeah.
We don't know how you're going to pay the bills. Mm-hmm. You're waiting on unemployment, and you're not getting any answers from there. You already kind of decided at this point that you're probably not going to get approved for unemployment. I mean, this is what I remember.
Yeah, that was a consideration because my former boss can be vindictive.
Yeah.
But fortunately, everything went through fine, and I am now collecting.
So we're talking about the emotional roller coaster.
Okay.
So I mean, yeah. So what's going on in your head? I mean, so now you're facing that you're not going to, you can't just jump right in, because the initial thought after being fired, once you recovered from that, bomb,
mm-hmm.
Was, okay, I'm going to move up my start date, renting this table and so on. And now you're coming to this conclusion that you can't, that's not going to work.
Yep.
And so, I mean, where are you at in your head as far as that goes? I mean,
all kinds of thoughts. Should I find another groomer to work for? Should I beg for my job back? All these things were going through my head. And the person that I was going to work with actually suggested to me that I do it out of my house.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's interesting, but
how
exactly?
This whole thing is, I mean, you're really kind of just, you're not seeing any of this coming.
No, not at all. Well, to be fair, I was advertising on Facebook, and I thought I was being under the radar, and I knew that at some point I got caught. I knew it was coming,
Mm-hmm.
and I just didn't expect it to be. I expected to be able to resign on my own terms and just go off into the sunset, and it didn't happen that way.
Right. It's kind of an assumption. You're kind of running on a lot of assumptions.
Yeah. So I was really down for a while. And, sitting all day at home with nothing really to do was not helping.
No.
So I started to do research, how to get funding, how to get this started, who do I talk to, what do I do? And that took quite a while. It was a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a month and a half now?
Yeah, it's about 6 weeks.
6 weeks. Yeah. So, I mean, but I mean, it's not like you're just coming around, but we're also going back 2 weeks with our notes here.
Right.
So this, at this point, we're right around the 1 month mark since you were fired. You're finally starting to kind of come around but it's a roller coaster. Really.
It is. Generally, I start the day feeling like this is it. I can do this. It's going to be great. I'm going to have customers flying out my butt, and it's just going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And then by dinner time, I'm like, what was I thinking? What am I going to do? I can't do this. It's too much. And I'm slowly losing it. So, that's basically my day-to-day feelings.
Right.
Just up and down every day. And it's exhausting. It really is. So over the last 2 weeks, I've been doing my quote unquote homework for the funding company, which is very helpful. It's, all about learning about running a business and the things you have to think of and do. Some things didn't necessarily apply to me. I'm not going to have employees. I'm a one-man band over here. So, but, even if it's just me, like you were talking about systems and SOPs, I'm going to need my own systems. So I'm going to have to work on that. Fortunately, in a past life, I wrote a lot of SOPs. So I'm very familiar with...
It's something you kind of shine at.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's, there's a really important lesson in that. In making any kind of transition like this, from doing to running to owning, or making a massive transition like I am, I mean, not to overshadow anything. I don't mean it like that, but what I mean to say is we're going from being, from relying on somebody to keep, to provide us with this income, and to being the one that's in charge of everything.
Right.
The ultimate, it's the sacrifice of stability for freedom.
Right.
Because nothing's free.
Yeah.
So freedom costs stability. To be free, there's no such thing as stability. At any given moment, it can always all be washed away. So that being said, I think that, I've heard this said many, many, many times. when you're making this transition, the important thing is to lean very heavily on what you are very good at.
Mm-hmm.
So you already have all this experience in
Sure.
writing systems and putting SOPs together.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I want to I don't want to get too far off track with our format, but, that means that, realistically you can be, you can set up an SOP for every aspect of your business. So that's something that you really need to start concentrating on doing. So, in terms of, I mean, you've already started budgeting.
Yeah.
So you're kind of getting that, figuring that part out. So, pretty soon you'll have that figured out, and then you can come up with a system for it. And then, inventory for your supplies and stuff. I mean, you come up with a system that works for that. And of course, with any system, it can change based on it. It's very likely going to change as time goes on based on, current, market conditions and so on and so forth, or maybe just supplier issues, whatever. But, I mean, systems can change. They're not locked in, it's not etched in stone. It's not not the 10 Commandments, but at the same time, by creating the system, you of course make your entire life easier, because now you already know every step of what you need to do in order to cover this one aspect of the business.
Right.
So, so I think it's a huge psychological win when you begin to understand where your strengths are and how those things can apply to what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, John Maxwell talks about this in some of his writing. And, Tony Robbins talks about it, a lot of, these personalities in the self-help space, and in the leadership space and so on, they all talk about the same thing. I mean, you really need to kind of lean into what you're good at to help you kind of, scale your business or start your business or start, your journey towards growth, towards leadership, whatever. And by having those strengths behind you and using them in your everyday process, I feel like my camera shakes too much.
Stop tapping your leg.
It's not my leg. It's I'm moving my arms on the table.
Oh.
But at any rate, so my point is that's a psychological win. Is like, and I think we take it for granted. And this is why gratitude's so important too, is because gratitude lets us stop taking things for granted. You start to kind of pay more closer attention to the little things that we always kind of just overlook that are actually really big. If we didn't have those little things, then there would be a hole in the way things are going or the way things are done. I mean, if you didn't have, this prior experience with creating systems, then, it would probably take you some time and struggle to figure out, how you're going to order your supplies each month, or how you're going to book your clients, or, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, that's got to be psychologically helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
So, so I think that's really, I think that's an important thing to lean on. And, so we, in the process of everything that you've gone through, this is new to me, but you got to a point where, you came up with your own tagline.
Yes. So the name of my business is Julie Grooms Dogs, and it is one dog, one groomer, one calm, loving experience. And that kind of exemplifies my overall plan and mission. is to, instead of having an assembly line of dogs coming and going, it's one dog at a time. And I can keep that dog calm and peaceful for the most part, and make it a good experience. So when the dog comes back, he or she will be relaxed and happy to see me. And,
Right. It's not like the dog is going into, it's not like the dog doesn't have this psychological feeling of going to the vet or something.
Correct.
So now, how do you going to implement that? I mean, do you create like a 10-minute window between dogs?
I'm only doing dogs under 50 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So I can do a small dog, depending on the breed and, the size, in 45 minutes to 1 hour.
Mm-hmm.
So my time slots are an hour and a half. So I'll have about a half hour, 20 minutes in between dogs, so that in a perfect world, the client will pick up right away or within a few minutes,
right,
be gone before my next dog shows up.
Right. Okay.
It's not always like that, but
have you considered, like, what if somebody says, you know what, I don't have anything else to do. Can I just, sit around?
I have no problem having a client stay.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's helpful. The dog will be more calm.
Yeah.
Other times it's the opposite. The dog's like, mom or dad is here, I'm going to freak out, so they'll take me home.
Right.
So it could go either way, but
sorry, mom, you got to go for a ride.
Yeah.
Here's $5. Go get yourself an ice cream.
Right. Have a hot dog.
Have a hot dog. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't mind that at all. I mean, if a client wants to stay and watch.
Yeah. Right.
Absolutely.
So you have a couple extra chairs just in case.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Now, so now, in my notes here, why is this specific wording your North Star against the big shops? Explain how that psychologically for you makes you feel like, this business is way stronger than, say, a PetSmart or.
Well, like I said, they operate on an assembly line operation.
Yeah.
And I feel that's stressful for the dog.
Yeah.
Stressful for the groomer.
Stressful for the owner too.
And stressful for the owner. They get their dog back. And if you're talking about your big box shops, there's high turnover, inexperienced groomers.
Yeah, you don't necessarily see the same groomer.
So you don't get to
time.
see the same and build a trust.
Yeah.
And that's what I want. I want to build a trust.
You're shaking the table.
Sorry.
It's all right.
I want to build a trust with my dogs so that, they come to see me. They see me all the time and they're like, oh, it's Julie. Hi. And
yeah,
that's really what it's about.
Good. Oh, that's great. So, and I actually, I really like the way that Jim and I put this note together. The essentially how my how my that's it. I got to stop talking. I got to start doing. Gemini has it written here that use my experience here to kind of talk about you. So essentially, now, I mean, we've talked about this before for you. You were spending months and months and months and months just very frustrated because you weren't seeing the kind of things in that job that you had. You weren't seeing the kind of improvements that you were hoping to see because there was a lot of things that you weren't in agreement with.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I don't want to frame this, because we all, as employees of some company, I think we all have this opinion that, well, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
But we also don't wear the shoes of the person managing the business or managing the crew or whatever. So I think psychologically it's a lot easier when you're not satisfied with whatever's going on to think, well, you don't know you obviously don't know what you're doing because I'm unhappy. But that wasn't really specifically the case for you either. So I'm just trying to not frame this like, they were most definitely not capable. They're running a business. They're capable.
Right.
But you nonetheless, you weren't happy. And so you were getting closer and closer and closer to the point of, I need to do something. And so you really kind of, and then it, and so you started to experiment with the idea. It backfired on you. You lost your job. Now you don't have a choice. You kind of have to do something, but you've been stuck in the rut a few times.
Yeah.
And so, and psychologically, where does that leave you? I mean, you're sitting around, you're not doing anything. Where are you mentally?
I'm lost.
Right. And so essentially the point that I'm making and the point that you kind of made. So now the person that's talking into the microphone right now, to me, to our audience, is not that same person that's lost.
Correct.
You got off your ass and you started doing.
Absolutely.
We can talk about doing all day long, but if we're not actually doing anything, then we're treading water and the current's pulling us down.
Mm-hmm.
And, so this is really, I think, a really big psychological psychological change that happens right there when you start to do.
Yeah. It really builds confidence.
Yeah.
In your own thoughts of your ability to achieve your goal. Anybody can sit there and say, well, I want to do this and do nothing to get to that point. I'm in a position where I don't really have a choice.
Well, because you kind of put yourself in that position.
Yes.
You decided, hey, you know what? I've never swam before in my life. I don't know what a float is. I'm just going to step off into this deep end of the pool here and see what happens.
Yeah.
Right.
Pretty much.
And sometimes it's exactly, it's getting to be about that time. Sometimes it's exactly what we need. Holy crap. It's about that time.
It's not.
Psychological. But at any rate, sometimes it's what we need to kind of get our asses in gear and do the necessary thing. I think, there's an important distinction that needs to be made. Because I see it all the time. My eye's really bugging me. We see it all the time. People, there's a new push these days on social media. So for the last couple of years, there's been a really big push for more entrepreneurs. Excuse me, and people looking for coaching and success and growth and all this stuff. There's been, social media has been rampant with this stuff for the last few years. And all of a sudden now there's another rhetoric, and the other rhetoric is the opposite. It's like, not everybody's cut out for this. Don't fucking do this. Don't do this unless you're ready to do this. So one of the big messages, and I think this is the important distinction, is if you don't feel in any way that, if you're, if you're just comfortable letting life go by, maybe that's where you should stay. Just keep doing what you're doing. Some people are perfectly satisfied with their income, working for the people they're working for. They don't see any reason to, so don't change it.
Yeah.
If it's working, it's working. Because this is not an easy life.
No.
And, and so, I mean, we're not even close to successful yet.
Yeah.
I mean, we're on our way. And I think that, mentally, I feel very successful. And this, we're going to kind of get into a little bit of that because a lot of that come from the last couple of weeks, but but that's different from, what most people's definition of success is. And so, it's even, I mean, pretty much every entrepreneur is saying the same thing. Yeah, no, it's, what? It's great, but it's hard work.
Yeah.
And now they're all saying, but listen, it never stops being hard work.
Right.
It never, you don't get to just one day say, hey, you know what? I've reached it and now I can coast. Because, if you're a business owner, you have to keep running the business. You don't get to walk away. Maybe eventually someday you can, if you hire the right team. I think for you, that's not really.
Well, that's not entirely true. I mean, I'm now obviously not going to have employees
right
with me, but
yeah.
I need an accountant. I need a lawyer. I need all these things to help me with finances, taxes.
Yes, you're going to farm out a lot of your systems. I get that, which means that you'll gain back some of your time,
right?
And that's not really what I'm trying to say. So now the millionaire entrepreneur is somebody who's constantly searching for more. Is constantly trying to, how can I make more? What new product can I put out there? And, incidentally too, entrepreneurs, I'm pretty sure that most people listening to this already understand this, but entrepreneurs tend to get a bad rap from the left, from the liberal minded, because they're seen as, as people who are greedy. Most entrepreneurs are doing something because of the thrill of doing it.
Right.
I mean, it's coming up with new ideas, new products, and new innovations, and so on and so forth. Some entrepreneurs who are, in the self-help business or in the coaching business or whatever, which is where I'm headed. I'm not looking if I can make, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 a year, that's great. If I make freaking 600,000, 700,000, 800,000 a year, well, that's not where I was looking to go, but I'm not going to say no to it. If I'm making millions, I'm not going to say no to it. And if I can just barely cover my salary right now, which I think I can do a lot better than that, but if I can cover my salary right now, I'd still be equally happy with it, because the idea here is I want to do something that's fulfilling. And that's really what, that's the basis of what an entrepreneur is, I'm not settling for working for somebody else. I'm not settling for because I'm just not being fulfilled that way. And for those people that, go to work every day working for somebody else and doing their job and coming home and, and referring to this article I read about this gentleman's father who was an electrician, and he's like, and he had all these hobbies, and, he didn't have to be super. And I mean, that poor gentleman that wrote the article is a misconception about what that means, what success means. Success can be, go to work every day for somebody else, come home and then build the freaking boat that you've been wanting to build, or freaking, or just spending time with family. And I think that a lot of people tend to not realize that that's
successful.
Yeah. And to kind of put that down. And, and then this poor guy's own son writes an article about how, well, my father's not successful. No, he is. That's his level of success. and so when people talk about, you need to be more successful, well, what we mean to say is you need to find out what's fulfilling for you and chase that.
Mhm.
And I think the most important thing that people tend to miss is that the biggest part to being successful is the consistent growth that you must make throughout your life. If you are not constantly growing
Right.
all the way to the moment that you breathe your last breath, if you are not consistently changing or chasing some new way to grow, then you're missing the point of living. And I think I think that's something important to kind of. I might have just gone on a tangent,
Yep.
but at any rate, so so I'm not sure. The so I transitioned into, I went from, all right, that's enough talking, let's start doing. So I decided to go ahead and shamelessly plug my website again, evec-community.org, EVEC community.org. Okay, enough of that. So, but I created the landing page. I figured out all of the hurdles that I needed to go through in order to get this page out there and actually start earning money. And I haven't I haven't advertised the page yet, so I'm not earning any money yet, but it's there. And this is actually my shameless plugs is my first bit of advertising. But it's having finished that puts me in a mindset, okay, now I'm starting to actually do something. Even though it's just sitting there, I'm doing something. I've done something. I wrote a book, for Christ's sake.
Mm-hmm.
6 months sitting around freaking, worrying that my neck is going to fucking seize up on me again. And, that, I don't know what else to do with my life. Well, I wrote a book. So I did something instead of thinking about it. And then I go back to work because I need money. I'm running out of options. I got to go back to work. So I go back to work. I'm doing something. And I'm getting paid while I'm at work to work on my own shit. And there's a fine line there. You understand that I'm not just going there sitting at a desk and not doing anything for them. They're paying me for my time. They're paying me to be there when something breaks, when something, when there's an issue. And they also, of course, hand me a bunch of projects that they're going to pay me for as well. And, and so when I can find time within all of that to also work on my own stuff. So there's, I'm pretty fucking lucky to have this opportunity. If I had, when I took this job, it was this job or working at an Amazon factory 3 nights a week. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that would have been hard work. I would have been running. And it's 14 hours a night. And so, imagine how fucking exhausted I would be then. Of course, I'd have 3 days off. And the reason I say 3 days and not 4 is because that fourth would be me sleeping all day. But then even so, that's 3 days. And I'm not sure that my mind would necessarily would recover enough to accomplish much. And, and if it weren't for this job too, and all the adversity I faced and everything else, I probably wouldn't have gotten away from the day trade. And I probably, wouldn't have figured out this is my calling. I probably would have been, I don't know, I probably would have fallen into some kind of rut. And the worst part about that job was that it was the weekends. And that's when everybody that I want to see is free. So,
Yep.
I mean, not to say I've got much of a social life right now, but I mean, I'm working towards something, and it's different. It's different, and I wouldn't have found that if I didn't take this job, and I get paid. I get to sit there and earn a paycheck while I'm also working on trying to create this, and so there's something really astoundingly wonderful about how things worked out for me. And it's something I certainly should be very grateful for. And it's easy to kind of forget about all of that. And so, it took me a while to stop saying, I need to get away from here. I started to, I mean, even with our gratitude sessions in the morning, I started to say, I'm excited to go to work tonight. Not because there's something specific about going there that I'm excited for it because I'm grateful to have it. And tomorrow morning, I know that I'm going to say, I'm glad that I got to sit down for 2 hours and work on this aspect of the business or, whatever. And once again, Chickpea. But so I think there's quite a bit there for me now. I don't know how we segue from my gratitude to your process of building the bill paying schedule and confronting a credit history described as embarrassing to put on paper. So this is the process. Now you can start to kind of talk about this counseling.
Well, the woman I talk to, have met each week. She's kind of guiding me as to what to do for the loan officers. So, I have had to give them tax returns and bank statements and business plan, financial plan for the business, like how I'm going to spend their money.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
How I'm going to spend their money. And my credit's not great, to be perfectly honest. And I have some late payments and I'm behind on some things. And I had to write an explanation letter to these loan people to tell them, this is why this happened and, what I'm doing to fix it. So I did that and turned it in, and I think it's a pretty good letter.
Yeah.
But, there's still that, you in the back of your head, you're thinking, there's no way they're going to give me any money.
So how do you, how did you kind of make the shift from, these are embarrassing numbers, these situations are embarrassing to share with the rest of the world? How did you make that shift to it as being a starting line as opposed to, just how do you go from, all right, so I'm going to share all this information and then they're going to say no, to, well, so this is where now we know, excuse me, now we know where we're starting from, what actions we need to start to make. And, we stop thinking of it in terms of, okay, it's all over, and reframe it instead to, okay, so now we begin.
Well, I've started taking steps to improve the situation instead of just sitting there and saying, well, there's nothing I can do about it. Just let it ride and,
Because you don't have a choice.
I don't have a choice. I mean, I have to take these steps to get to the finish line.
What if you did have a choice? Do you think that, I mean, if it didn't matter, and it, this is something I hear a lot too. If if it didn't matter, if the money didn't matter, if none of it mattered, what would you do? So you need, in order for you to start to be, I mean, it's the idea here is you start the business, you don't start the business. If you knew that there's, I mean, if the loan, is not going to come through, what are you going to do? I mean, what kind of advice would you give somebody that sits in the same position as like, I don't have it, not from a, I don't have a choice standpoint is what I'm trying to get at. Instead of not having a choice, but rather I have a choice. It's either I do this or I don't. Right.
Right.
So I have that choice, which you realistically do.
Yeah.
You do have that choice, but the choosing not to do it is so detrimental that you feel you have no choice.
Right.
So now what about somebody that doesn't feel that drastic? I mean, what do you tell them? Okay, so you're sitting here and that these numbers could potentially say you're not going to get the loan. How do you reframe that for them?
Well, I would tell them to consider all of your options. If you have options, consider all of them. Make a list of pros and cons for each one. And, really think about what your passion is. What do you want to do with your time? Do you want to work for someone else and just come in, collect a check, and go home? Or do you want to make it your own and work by your rules and your values as opposed to
someone else
exemplifying someone else's?
Right. I think that's a really good point. Excuse me. I heard somebody was talking about their own, and I'm trying to think of who it was, but oh no, it was I was reading Maxwell's book. Give your dream a test or something like that. I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah.
But and he was quoting somebody and basically saying himself is like, some people just feel this overwhelming sense that something that they're going to do something with their lives, that they're going to, and some people don't.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes I think that for those that don't see, now me, I always felt that I would somehow stand out in the crowd. And thus far, I mean, well, with the exception of, my days as a foreman and then project manager, I mean, I stood out in front of a crowd then. It was a small crowd, but still, I stood out in front of a crowd. Within my personal life, not so much. What I aim to do now kind of puts me in front of the crowd in every aspect of my life, which, and I've always felt that that's where I belonged. And I think that was the thing that I was missing, is that, it needs to it needs to exemplify every aspect of my life. Now, for those that don't have some kind of, lifelong driven feeling that, this is where I'm going, or this is what I, some sense of what I should be at some point. The question, I think, comes down to, well, are you happy?
Yeah.
Are you, and happiness is relative. So what I mean to say is not, are you happy, but are you fulfilled? Do you feel like what you're doing is, and fulfillment doesn't necessarily have to come from the job or the W-2. Fulfillment could be what you're doing when you get home.
Well,
what you're doing on the weekends.
Exactly. And a friend of mine has a son who's a little younger than ours. And he opted not to go to college. He's working a part-time job and he has no plans. And, she's concerned about that. She's like, I really want him to find something he loves to do. And I'm like, well, maybe the job's just a job and it funds his hobbies and where he gets his joy. There's no rule that you have to find your love and your joy in your job.
Right.
I mean, it certainly makes the job easier to go to, but
this brings up a whole separate issue, I think, too. Because what we're talking about two different things. One is, as parents, it's natural for us to want our children to exceed, to excel, and to be bigger and better than anything. I mean, part of it is, living vicariously through our children. Don't do it.
It's fine. Just leave it alone.
Okay. So, part of it is like living vicariously through our children. It's like there's a certain thing missing from our own lives, so we kind of seek it within our children's lives. And and another part of it is, of course, that we love our children very much, and we want to see them grow and excel in whatever area that they choose. And when our child doesn't necessarily exhibit that kind of motivation and that kind of determination to excel, to chase a dream or whatever, it tends to be disappointing for us as parents because we want them. But there's this whole idea, and this is part of what drives, I think, that psychological feeling. There's this whole idea that, you have to have it all figured out by a certain age.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And I think that's where I think that's where we make a mistake as parents, and where we make a mistake within our own lives, is that, listen, I'm 51. I was 49 when I said, fuck this. This isn't working. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I'm 51 halfway, it's really still at the beginning point of figuring out the rest of my life, figuring out my true success. Right?
Mm-hmm.
and so, and it seems pretty late in life. And, and there are people out there that say, if you're, well into your 40s and you don't have things figured out, well, I feel sorry for you. Fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not true, and there are stats that show that a giant portion of the world's best innovators, or history's best innovators, were all well into their 40s before they began their journey, or before they began, finding success in their journey. Whatever, realistically, as an example, freaking, of course, there was that Seth Rogen bit that he was talking about Ian, what's his name? McClellan, which wasn't true. But I can't stop staring at it. We've got a spider that's running around the table here, and it's
welcome to our basement studio.
Yeah. But at any rate, and it wasn't true that he started at 60, like Seth said.
Yeah.
that's when he made, when he got out of theater and became, internationally famous, within the U.S. anyway. But Harrison Ford was in his 30s when he made his first movie.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a carpenter before that. So I mean, he didn't. And there's so many studies actually that go on to show, neurologically speaking, our brains aren't fully developed until we're 25, 26.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember the specific studies that go to show that, so I'm not going to, don't hold me to that as fact, but but there are studies I've heard of studies that say that. And so I think it's a little bit unfair from a society standpoint to put so much pressure on our children to have things figured out at 18 years old.
Yeah.
And and so we're chasing them into these colleges
mm-hmm.
at 18 years old. And college, you go into college and you're supposed to have your career mapped out so that these are the courses you're going to take. And guess what? You're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars chasing that, which you're not even sure is what you want to do.
Right.
And, it's amazing to me how many billionaire founders dropped out of college to chase their dream.
Mm-hmm.
What they went to school for is not necessarily how they ended up to become such major success stories. So I think that as parents, we need to kind of step back from the idea that, our kid doesn't have it figured out. Of course we want them to figure it out, but they can't. We got to give them a break. If they don't have it figured out, they don't have it figured out.
Yeah.
And they maybe what that job is just funding their ability to figure it out.
Exactly.
So I think that there's something really, really important in talking about that. Now we kind of pulled away from a bunch of stuff, and so I kind of want to get into. I'm moving down to segment 3 here, and we don't even have time to get through all 5 of these segments. I want to start to. We're going to start kind of begin wrapping this up.
Yeah.
But, I want to kind of get into some of the things that, some of the philosophies that I picked up over the last week, because we kind of went over some of the things that you've discovered along the way. We talked a bit about Common Capital and how
mm-hmm.
How helpful they've been. What?
Your mic. It's your legs tapping.
Oh, it's because of the cord. At any rate, yeah, there's nothing I can do about that.
All right.
But it's not the microphone that I worry about, it's the camera. But at any rate, the thing I wanted to kind of get into, philosophies. Some of the philosophies that we're kind of we're really redesigning our entire thought process. We've been kind of pushing ourselves, anybody can just get fired or quit their job and then start the journey to creating a business. And, and it's fine. There's probably plenty of people that have small businesses that have never thought too deeply on consistent growth and so on and so forth. And I think that, maybe primarily because what I'm trying to do is go down that road towards, counseling and consulting and motivational, etc. that, of course, I'm very philosophical, but I've always been very philosophical. I mean, in my teens, and late nights in high school, after smoking a couple of pipes or whatever, smoke as a weed, I was staring at the ceiling, writing stuff in my journal and just being very, very philosophical back then. And I think it stems back to time that I used to spend with my uncle, in my early teens, very early teens. And so I've always been kind of philosophical. I've always kind of thought, deeper, what's the meaning of life kind of shit. I mean, not so much that the meaning of life, but, who am I and how do I fit into this, into this world? And, this little blue dot in a vast darkness that makes up the universe. Right. So, so realistically, giving up the job, trying to give up the W-2 now, giving up the job, then going back to the job, and now working to try and get past that, for you getting fired and everything, I mean, we're on a vast journey of growth. And a lot of things kind of come up. And I think one thing is that, when you're starting the journey, regardless of how philosophical you want to be or seeking continuous growth or whatever, I mean, whatever journey you end up going on, some things are going to become true. One is the Chinese finger trap. Oftentimes, when we're struggling to figure out how we're going to manage things, one thing that's very important, if you're going to go into business, you need to be self-aware.
Yep.
And this isn't a, this is how you need to seek consistent growth kind of speech. You need to be self-aware. And the reason you need to be self-aware is because you have to be able to fight that inner voice that says you can't do it. You have to be able to fight the emotional response when somebody, when somebody attacks what you're doing or whatever. You have to, you have to be able to control your way, your line of thinking at any given moment. This is the thing that you have to seek. In order to become successful at your business, whatever level of success that may be. So when I talk about the Chinese finger trap is oftentimes when we're trying to figure out who we are or become self-aware. Think of a Chinese finger trap, right? So you put two fingers in, one in either end, and then you go to pull apart and you can't get them free. Why is that? The harder you pull, the more you stretch it, or you're basically, because the mass of it stays the same, you're just stretching the thing out. So of course it's going to constrict. That's just the physical nature of it. And in becoming self-aware, so that you are emotionally intelligent. Mm-hmm. So that you have the ability to say, okay, that's not the appropriate response that I need to have right now. So a great example. Earlier this week, I was asked to do something at work. I did it. This particular project, I'd never worked on this machine before. It was a simple swap this thing for that thing. There's all kinds of things that you could examine in this, but I go right to the main cabinet. I don't have a whole lot of direction. I've never worked on it before, and the directions are just enough for me to say, okay, this is all I got to do. I open up a cabinet. I see the thing that looks just like the thing I've got to put in. So I replace the thing. And you lost your notes. You don't need them.
With what?
You don't need them anymore. But at any rate, so I do the thing. I close out the ticket, or, I sign off on the ticket. I give it to my boss. My boss closes the ticket. And then Thursday, I came in early. Now, mind you, I'd been busting my ass all week on a project there. And I go in early, and it's half an hour before I need to even sign, and all I wanted to do was just go grab a coffee before I need to put my boots on and my shirt on and everything. So I was going to go grab, but I come in and there's a new work order there. And then right there in official capacity, the person who did the original ones, and now this particular person has been quoted before as having said that they want me to be fired. It's because he and I don't get along. He believes himself to be a leader, and he's really, really poor at it. And he's also not in that capacity. He's not in a leadership capacity in any way. And I'm not trying to project some idea of who he is versus who he thinks he is. This is the reality. He's not in a leadership capacity. He thinks he is. He wants to be. He wants control over everything. And the other guy that works with him, his mentor, thinks the same thing. They want full control over everything and anything to do with what I do. And this is where I have a knee-jerk reaction to that. It's like, if you were my boss, that would be one thing, but you're not. I don't answer to you. And you don't get to dictate to me how I do my job. Especially since, and this is where the real rub comes, if I disagree with what you want me to do, because I want to do things safely. I want to do things that make sense. I want continuous improvement. I'm looking to grow. I'm not looking to half-ass. Don't give me directions to half-ass. Mm-hmm. And this has happened quite a few times. And the argument then comes back when I, whatever. I'm getting into a big, long story. I don't mean to. At any rate, so he and I have had problems in the past. And he really wants me gone. So this was a perfect opportunity for him because his directions caused me to misunderstand the actual work order. He then creates a new work order in which he says, this work order was never completed and should never have been closed out. He didn't say you made him, there was a misunderstanding or, changed out the wrong part. He simply said the work was never done, should never close it out. So now my boss comes to me like, here's the new work order. I don't understand. You said you did it. And I said, I did do it. And then when I began to explain, he says, oh, no, I completely understand how you would make that in the wording and this and that. Now, mind you, I'm livid. And so now here's the Chinese finger trap analogy, right? I'm yanking on this. This is my old self that wants to spend the next 6 hours or 8 hours pissed off. I haven't even gotten on the clock yet, and I'm freaking fuming. And this is how I used to do business, how I used to conduct personal business. Mm-hmm. Me. This is how I dealt with me and my emotions. Would be to anybody and everybody that was willing to hear, I would bitch and complain, and I'd be pissed off the rest of the fucking night. How do you get your finger free from the Chinese finger trap?
Relax the tension.
Exactly. You push the two ends together, it balloons up, and then your hands can free. So I relaxed. I did. I says, you know what? Instead of thinking about this, I'm going to journal about it and seek a little bit of insight. Mm-hmm. Look for some insight. See if I can figure out another way. And then I went to go do another, I was called to do a repair, and I go to do the repair, and before it's like that, it was out of my mind. I spent the rest of the night not giving a shit. And then, the next day, and anytime something comes up, I mention, I talk about it. I'm talking about this from a completely different, separated point of view. I'm not talking about it from that point of view of having that emotion or being that, you know what I mean? So this is kind of, I think, what I really wanted to kind of get into. And so, I mean, I'm sure you can see moments like this yourself, right? How the hell am I going to pay this? How the hell am I going to afford that? And I've got to applaud you, by the way, because we talked about it many, 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 many times about the showing up metric, right? You just simply show up. I know it's hard. I know it sucks. I know it feels like it's pointless, but show up anyway. Do it anyway. Whatever it is, do it anyway. Worry about the next step. It doesn't matter how you feel. Just do it anyway. Right?
Right.
Where has that gotten you? I mean, every day you're freaking, okay, well, I've got to do this project. And recently you're like, I'm not getting this loan. Okay. But they want paperwork. You did it anyway. You got to make a phone call. Okay. You did it anyway. Even though you're like, I don't think it's going to work. But wait a minute. What are you getting out of this? What are you getting out of it? Even if the loan doesn't go through, what did you get out of it?
The experience.
The experience of all the stuff that you had to go through regardless, right? Not only that, but you've had a counselor discuss things with you, explain things with you, ask you to do things, to go through various different exercises, figure this thing out, figure that thing out. What did you know about starting a business before, say, 3 weeks ago?
Next to nothing.
It was, I mean, you knew about as much as I had been telling you. And I don't know as much as you know, although I did file with the LLC.
Yeah.
I have that much, and I do understand. I mean, there are some things that I understand, but, but I don't know anything about the freaking financial end. I'm not seeking lenders. So I don't know anything about all the stuff you're going through there. I also don't need permits.
Right.
I mean, I've got my SBA, or DBA rather, through the city, which I had to get, signed off on by the building department, but that was it. Basically all I had to do was just sign a piece of paper saying that I'm not putting up any signs or expecting any traffic. You, on the other hand, have to do something completely different. So you're going through a whole different, and you've had the experience, regardless of how the lenders answer. You've had all this experience. So now you can do it again.
Right.
Not only that, but all that experience has also set you on the path of budgeting. It set you on the path of planning, problem solving. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, do you feel like you're making some real progress here?
Definitely. I feel really good about it right now. I think, regardless of the financial outcome, I'm learning a lot. I'm getting somewhere. Moving in the right direction.
What are your chances?
What are my chances? I'd say 50-50.
Of what? Getting a loan?
Yeah.
Okay. What are your chances of being successful?
Realistically, or what I believe?
It's the same thing.
Okay.
It's the same thing.
100%.
100%. Why do I say it's the same thing? Realistically. So here's the thing. Tony Robbins says it. Your life is what you choose to focus on. If you're focusing on all these negative things, this won't work, that won't work, this isn't going to happen, that's not going to happen, that's what you're going to find. Why? Why is that? Let's talk about the psychology of that for a minute. When you decide well in advance that something's not going to work, what do you suppose your actions are going to do? How your actions are going to be? I mean, if you're already deciding that things aren't going to work,
then you're not going to be, your heart's not going to be in it. You're not going to
put in the effort.
Right.
You're going to say, well, what's the point? It's not going to work.
Right.
And even if you're not saying that outwardly, in the back of your head, you're thinking it's not going to work. So why fucking bother? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Your life is what you choose to focus on. And it's Tony Robbins, right? That's not my bit. That's Tony Robbins. And so now I believe that's true. And this is what manifestation really is. It's not, I imagine this thing and it's just magically going to happen. No, it's setting yourself up saying, listen, okay, so I'm going to succeed. How do I know I'm going to succeed? Because I'm going to keep showing up and I have the attitude that says I'm going to succeed. And what does that attitude mean? It means that every day that I show up, I put in the effort. I make the effort. I don't say, what's the point? I instead say, hey, I'm going to fucking do this and it's going to work. We're going to wrap this up, right? Me too. But at any rate, so, and we will wrap this up. I want to wrap this up on that thought. Okay. So doubt is an inevitability. What you do in the face of doubt is what makes the difference. How you want to perceive things is what makes the difference. Mm-hmm. If you allow that doubt, now you can perceive, you can have doubt. Doubt can happen. How you respond to the doubt, right, mm-hmm. is how is going to dictate your perception. And then how you perceive things is going to dictate to you how you're going to behave when the moment arrives. So tomorrow I've got to fill out some paperwork. Okay. I have all this doubt. So tomorrow when I go to fill out the paperwork, am I going to put in the effort?
Right.
If I'm really sitting here going, it's not going to work. Am I really going to put in the effort? I'm going to go, okay, well, I don't feel like it right now. I'm just going to, what? I'll take care of it in a couple hours. A couple hours come by. I don't feel like it. I'm just going to take, you know what I mean? It's just procrastination sets in. All these things begin to happen that just it pushes it off and makes it worse. So we change our perception of it. We choose to react to the doubt by changing our perception to say, yeah, but you know what? Maybe it doesn't work out. But one thing I know is that I showed up today and I showed up yesterday. I've been showing up every day for the last couple of months. For me, I've been showing up every day for a year. You know what I mean? And I mean, there's been, there's 6 months there of real freaking, but I reframed that position I was in and wrote a fucking book. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've climbed some fucking pretty big obstacles, and sometimes climbing an obstacle means just walking around it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so my point is, you change your perception. You keep in mind that success is what you make it. And you just keep showing up, it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So with that said, I think that's a good place to kind of wrap this all up. I think we've had pretty productive. I mean, it's been a rocky road, but a pretty productive couple of weeks, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely.
There are some points here I think that I'd like to kind of try to move over to next week. Maybe we can talk about those. Maybe even kind of try to centralize more of our thoughts into one or two big segments or something.
Yeah.
But, because it's easy to get really kind of just going and going and going.
Right.
But yeah, so, I mean, you've made some seriously big strides
Yep.
in attitude and in personal growth. You've been showing up every day, regardless, at the end of the day, you're like, I don't know, but you know what? You showed up in the morning and you put your effort in.
Yeah.
And we know that the biggest effort always comes in the morning anyway,
Mm-hmm.
And I've been, I feel philosophically like I've made some very big moves. After the $47 win, that is the launch of the digital book.
Mm-hmm.
After getting that out, I kind of realized that and this is something maybe we can talk about more in detail next week, but I really kind of hit on a point of realizing that sometimes forward momentum doesn't look like forward momentum. Taking care of oneself, but both with energy, the amount of energy that you have, honoring that energy, honoring your physical well-being. All those things can look like stagnation, but if you're honoring them, that's actually probably the biggest move that you can make.
Yeah.
In forward momentum. And so I feel that I've made some very big strides in personal growth within the last 2 weeks. And so I with this new, with this amount of growth that I've recently had, I feel like the sky's the limit. So it's and there's going to be downs. I'm going to hit the valleys again. It's bound to happen. This is a big part of the ride. It's never going to end. It never stops being difficult,
Mm-hmm.
but we, the number one thing in realizing in personal growth, in understanding personal growth, is that you stop striving so much for the destination and instead just spend all of your time concentrating on the journey itself.
Yeah.
So with that said, I want to thank everybody for tuning in for another week. All one or two of you.
Can I interject? Anybody who's wondering about my little old man Jack, he's doing very well. He's in a foster. So he's probably going to find a permanent home soon, and he's living it up. He's living his best life. So
Yes. And Fenway's a lot happier.
definitely
The house has gotten a lot more
peaceful.
Yeah, the tension's dropped.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. That's fantastic as well. So, even in the darkest moments, when we thought that one of them was going to have to be sacrificed for the greater good, we found another way.
Yeah.
So life, the difficult moments, this too shall pass, right?
Yeah.
The difficult moments, they just give it some time. Think about it logically, put your emotion aside. Eventually you'll figure it out. And I think that's the message we can leave everybody with. evec-community.org. Please check out my book. I realize $47 might seem like a lot of money for some, but it's, this 20 years of experience went into this book. So, and to be honest, it's well worth it. I think there's, even if you don't run a business, it can be very helpful in understanding ways that you, even within whatever it is you do, that you can find ways to improve your function at work, or, professionally, and even maybe even some of that you can transpose into some kind of philosophy for your personal life. But check it out, please. Comment, like, share the podcast. Thank you again for joining us, and we will see you next week, I hope.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.